Okay, we are recording. There's Alicia. Hi, Alicia. Take a breath. Started recording.
Holidays are crazy.
Yeah, I said it's ending parties and then trying to get out with all the. What are you gonna call it?
Yeah,
Can you pull up your?
I have nothing right
You
now.
have nothing right now.
Trying to get it.
Well, how about if I call it to order?
Okay.
We're gonna call to order the Board Policy Committee on Friday, February 14th at 2:32 p.m. to review the latest updates. Press Policy 117. So I'm gonna go through each of them very quickly. The good news on these is there was not substantial changes to any of them. Any that I thought either did affect working environments, or working conditions, I put under DEA and DESPA, as well as some of the nurses and administrator ones that needed to be noted. The good news is most of these are still on the changes coming from Title IX. The changes from guidance counselor to just counselor, a lot of the name changes. But as I go through, if there's any questions, just please let me know. And they were all, as you saw, to approve as written, and we will have the first reading at the board meeting on Wednesday, February 19th. So the first one is Board Policy 2:105, the ethics and gift ban. The policy and the footnotes were updated for continuous improvement. Footnote 3 was updated for optional language from the recommendation of the Illinois Council of School Attorneys, and my recommendation was that we take that. Next is 2:120, board member development. This had a couple of additions to it. So in the policy and the footnotes, there is an added training on improving student outcomes for the board members. So they will take that within their first year of training. It requires school district to make reasonable efforts to provide training to all school personnel, and then the continuous improvement plan. So I'm going to be checking with the Illinois Association of School Boards to find out if our board members have had that training. If they haven't on student improvement, then I'll bring one in for them either at our upcoming retreat or have some other training for them. You're one of our newest ones. Do you remember having that training?
I don't.
I didn't think so. So we'll look at bringing that in. The next one is 2:260. This is the uniform grievance procedure. And as you can see, this is one that I put DEA and DESPA, because if there is ever a grievance, if there's anything that you have, this is the policy that we follow. And basically what you will see throughout is the update of the Title IX, since they've changed it to the complaint, the discrimination and harassment is all updated. They updated all of that language under 2:260. Next one is 2:265, which is again the Title IX grievance procedure. And what I know is we're going to get all of these done. And then with the new administration in, these will all be probably redone again, because these were just done as former President Biden exited. And now I'm sure they will change back again. So I anticipate a lot of that coming forward probably in the next 6 months. Under 2:265, again, it talks about the updates to the Title IX wording, that it's discrimination on the basis of sex, including sex-based harassment in whether it's students or an employee's ability to work and learn, and then providing an educational work environment free from discrimination on the basis of sex. So it has all of the new wording that went into Title IX. I did add on page 2, Doug Stansford, who is our Title IX coordinator, so I made sure that that was in there. Other than that, there were no other changes. Next is 4:30, revenue and investments. There is a new Public Funds Investment Act, which extends the maturity time frame for investments. And those that have 500 million or more in assets, it extends it from 3 years to 10 years. So they had to put that in there. Also, it allows districts to consider the financial institution's record and current level of financial commitment to its local community when deciding whether to deposit public funds in that. It gives essentially the districts the opportunity, if there are questions or concerns, and they need to go outside of what might be local entities, we can do that. So we can go to different banks if needed. Also making sure that the appropriate insurance related to deposits are on our banks, which we all work out with all of our local banks that we have. And the footnotes were updated to reflect that as well. These are the ones, just so you know, that I make sure I run by Mark as well. So we know that we are in compliance. 460 is purchase and contracts. At this one, the policy was updated by the legal references and footnotes at the bottom and any continuous improvement that had to occur. Or 170 is safety. The policy and footnote number 9 are updated in response to the public act that came through. There has to be at least one automated external defibrillator or AED to be present in all attendance centers during the school day. The footnotes are also updated in response to that. And we have to have a cardiac emergency response plan that we are finalizing as we speak. We have to, ISBE has to create a reporting mechanism for school safety review compliance reports. We require district threat assessment teams to include at least one law enforcement officer. And then make sure that there is a draft and published guidance for school bus safety. The good news is we got a notice of this about a year ago, and we are already in compliance with all of this. We have AEDs in all of our buildings, as well as extra for athletic events, and schools as well know of that. So we are already in compliance with 4170. Next is 5:20, workplace harassment. This again goes hand in hand with the changes made to Title IX. And it also talks about the fact that there are new wordings on workplace harassment to include family responsibilities and reproductive health decisions. So those were added as part of Title IX. And the footnotes were updated in response to the EEOC enforcement guidance on harassment in the workplace. Next comes 590, abused and neglected child reporting. The policy and footnote 4 were updated. It removes the requirement for mandated reporters to confirm their oral reports in writing to DCFS. You used to have to do your report, fill out a form that went to DCFS. Now what stays in the folder is the report that we get from DCFS. If it ends up that it comes back and it's unfounded, we remove that then from any child's file now. And we started that, actually, we learned about this and started that at the beginning of the year. Next is, sorry. 5100, which is the staff development program. They have actually taken out one of the things that required professional development is, and that's chronic health conditions of students. So that is one thing that when we look at our public school works, that we make sure we don't have in there. We have had to add trauma responsive learning environments, and the whole child, which we work with, again, Public School Works, to make sure that is in training. And that is the warning signs of mental illness, trauma, suicidal behavior in youth, along with appropriate intervention and referral techniques. So that'll be a part of that. They updated on the third page all of the Title IX requirements to make sure that they follow the new Title IX grievance procedure. And that is all on that one. Next is 5120, employee ethics of Code of Professional Conduct and Conflict of Interest. The policy and the footnotes were updated, and they changed the term in this one. If you remember a couple back, it went from guidance counselor to just counselor due to the licensing requirements. So that was all updated in that one. Next comes Board Policy 5:125, personal technology and social media usage and conduct. The policy and footnotes were updated for continuous improvement, and it included the footnotes because it's tied to Board Policy 8:10, connection with the community. So that was brought in to make sure. And they updated, obviously, Twitter is now known as X, Threads, and then Discord, which I don't have any clue what Discord is, thank goodness. Another social media that we don't have to, or I don't have to worry about, hopefully. 5230 is maintaining student discipline, and that one actually got caught in there. I didn't get on the top. This says to please refer to any applicable collective bargaining agreements. That's what we follow because our bargaining agreements have to follow school code. 660 curriculum content. This is one that I also share with Mr. Stansford, so he can make sure that we have the requirements. Under 660, it was both policy references and footnotes were updated. And districts have to decide by July 1st of this year whether we want to implement or opt out of the career exploration and the career pathways. That is something that Dixon is opting into. And we have been working with the high school on our pathway, college and career pathway endorsements to make sure that we can successfully do the endorsements. And there is, starting in the 26-27 school year, I let Doug know about, we have to have instruction on climate change beginning that year. So we've got another year yet to find out what grade levels we have to do that in and what materials we're going to need. So that is an addition to our curriculum. Moving on, we have six colon 135 accelerated placement program. They have defined what this is. They call it an advanced academic program. And this is something I know that Doug and the teachers are looking into to make sure that those that we call gifted or accelerated programs fall under these guidelines. It also has information that allows a district to have an accelerated placement policy that includes how do you get in and what do you do to qualify for it, to promote equity amongst our students. It also requires automatic enrollment into the next most rigorous level of advanced coursework for students who score exceed standards on the Illinois assessments or ACTs. And so this is going to be something new because there are sometimes teachers or sometimes parents who don't want kids to go into that depending. So it's going to be a lot of explanations, I think, for our parents and making sure that our teachers understand that, and our counselors, that if they get in exceeds, they will automatically go into the next higher one up. It's important to really communicate that because depending on what they want to do post high school, it might be needed or it might not be needed. So we want to make sure that our parents and our kids understand that. It also is not only exceeds, but it requires that no later than the beginning of the 27-28 school year that we have an automatic enrollment to the next most rigorous level of coursework for the students who meet as well. There's been a lot of discussion on that because the question is, will they be able to handle the rigor of the next course? But again, I think that's where the communication with the parents is, and what are we going to do if a kid is not being successful, even though they're actually eligible for it? So that's going to take a lot of discussion and communication on our part. Which then they talk about, the next thing under that was it permits a district's policy to allow for the waiver of a course or unit instruction. If they need to, if we know that a child has, already mastered the content that needs to be, there's a lot of times that we allow them to skip to the next course. How do they do that? It doesn't happen very often, but they take usually the spring final. And if that child can pass it successfully at 90% or more, they are allowed then to jump to the next class because they've mastered the content to be successful for that next class. And then finally, and this is something that we'll be adding to our handbook, it requires the district's policy to include a process for notifying the parents or guardians in writing of a student's eligibility for enrollment. So not only will we put that in our handbooks, but then parents will also get a letter letting them know that their children qualify for that.
If they,
Yeah,
they pass out of the class, do they get a credit for that class?
Not for ones that, or yes, I believe that we have the opportunity to give them that credit because they have aced the final.
Okay.
We have to take a look at depending on what it is and whether it goes to an elective or if it actually goes to a core credit.
Okay.
Next is 6270. This is the guidance and counseling program. And the footnotes were updated of the list of services that may be included in school counseling. So when you take a look at what they do, it clearly identifies that not only the emotional, the social, and the physical needs, but it talks about helping with any diagnosis of learning disabilities and developing kids' full educational potential. So making sure that they're aware of what's out there for them. Next up is 7:10, equal educational opportunities. So there was some policy and footnotes updated here. It prohibits discrimination based on reproductive health decisions, which you'll remember from a previous board policy. And to reflect categories protected by IHRA, meaning that we cannot discriminate based on military status and or unfavorable military discharge. So those have been updated in 7/10. Next comes 7/20. And that is harassment of students is prohibited. These have been updated in the policy and the footnotes. And if you look, it's a lot of the Title IX phrases that were changed in here. I also double check to make sure that our non-discrimination coordinator and complaint managers were correct, and they were. So this one again is a Title IX update. 7/100 is health, eye, and dental examinations, immunizations, and exclusion of students. And I've actually already talked to our district nurse about this. We no longer have to provide information or materials regarding meningococcal disease or meningococcal immunizations and vaccines. I talked to Sherry Hafer about this, and she's taking a look at it. Basically, they have to have that in high school, and we believe they are now caught up with getting all of the kids their immunizations by the time that they graduate, which is why that's pulling out of there. Sherry Hafer, like she said, if a parent has any questions on that, they're always going to either try to provide them the information or hook them up with our local health department. So we are already covering that. 7/160 talks about students' appearance. This policy is unchanged. They just updated the footnotes to talk about display of graduation attire and inclusion of culturally appropriate regalia, which is something that's already come to our board a couple of years ago. And we are making sure that they have the ability to talk with their principal and make sure that we're abiding by this policy. 7/185 is talking about teen dating violence and that it's prohibited. The information that is in here is all related to Title IX again. You take a look at some of the updates, it includes not only sexual discrimination, but including sex-based harassment. So that is all related to Title IX language. 7/200 are suspension procedures. And on this one, it was just simply reformatted and it put in the words about re-engagement guidelines. As you know, when a child is suspended from school, before they go back into the classroom, now they have to have a re-engagement meeting with at least the principal and a lot of times perhaps the teacher and or counselor in the building. Next comes 8:10, connection with the community. And the policy and the footnotes were updated according to a US Supreme Court case. And it addresses government official speech on social media and they talk about a public relations program for the district and how we make sure we're connecting with our community. That's fairly fast, but like I said, there are no real substantive changes. So questions on this? Then first reading will be next week. Final reading and adoption will then be at our March meeting. If anything comes up in between, like I said, I'm sharing these with the other people as well. If anything comes up in between, just let me know and we can answer it at our next meeting.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I wrote down. The AED,
Mhm.
they're in all the buildings. Who's trained besides the nurse?
I believe the principals have gone through a training. And I think right now it's those two. I'd have to check about our secretaries.
I'm assuming all the I have to do.
All the coaches are,
I'm
yes.
assuming all the coaches.
Yep. anyone who is a coach has to go through that as a part of, I can't remember if it's a part of their ASAP certification or if that's something we just offer as a district before the seasons begin. Yeah. Any other questions?
I'm sorry.
You're okay. We're okay.
Barbara, how would we discriminate against in the military? Would it be talking about one of our students?
I think that might have been, I can double check, I think it was on hiring as well. I'd have to go back and check that there are certain things that we can't discriminate if they were dishonorably discharged, yes.
Most of them were because of
Title IX,
Title IX and because they were legal law changes, correct?
correct.
I mean, it wasn't, what I noticed, they weren't district.
No,
They were.
that's why I said it, yeah.
Language changes and.
Bringing all the language up to date from Title IX. Couple of the other ones, yeah, really, there were no,
I mean, it was a technology
substantial.
change And.
yep. Yeah, those are kind of nice, other than they're at times very boring to sit through.
Yeah, I was kind of like, okay, and then I was like, okay, I know you have DEA desk on here, as I was like,
Whenever I always say, if I think it might even affect a working condition, I just make everybody aware because like curriculum.
cause I read it 3 times, cause I was like,
Yeah,
you know.
I just always think about anything that could affect, or people may ask, how do they do this? I always put it in. Just because sometimes it's a nice thing that I want to make sure the leadership knows. And then if you guys feel it's important enough, you can then, pull it out from there. So,
The press things helped,
yes.
cause I was like,
yes.
okay, where's that at? And it's, that. Oh,
Yeah, they do those little kind of, this is why this is in here, now, whether it's a court case or, a change in the law. And like I said, most of these haven't had any substantial changes.
I saw it, I understand, right, it's all.
Yep.
Legalities.
Exactly. And I said, unfortunately, or fortunately, however you want to look at it, this is finishing the Title IX language from the Biden era. So I anticipate in the next 12 months, they'll all be changed back again, because that's what we just did was, it changed in the Biden administration. It was very late in their administration. So I anticipate, the Trump will reestablish Title IX under their guidance, so expect them to change again. Yes. So, any questions?
No, I didn't know. That was my only thing that I had was when I saw the DEA, I was like, and desk was like,
Yeah,
saw those in there and I looked, I looked to see where it had me.
yeah,
That was my only question.
yes.
So, yeah.
Like I said, when there's something that I think, especially for the leadership, since you guys sit down with us, I just want to make sure that you look at it if there's any questions. Anything that has the possibility of affecting a working condition, I always kind of look at making sure,
I did have,
Yes, what one?
the staff development program, is that new?
No, this is what we utilize both with Public School Works.
Public schools?
Yep.
Okay, because it had the one about identifying warning signs of mental illness.
Mhm.
Talked about that before.
Yep, and the trauma and trauma informed suicide awareness. So that's one that I usually take and I just scan right to Public School Works. So when we meet usually in May, I'll say, okay, are these developed? And they usually know what, because they keep up with press as well. They know like, yep, we've got one in the hopper. It'll be every so many years starting this summer. So. Mhm. What other questions?
Well, now we have certain ones we have to do every year and certain ones we do every 3 years, so there's just a.
Yes. Yeah, and that was one, if you remember this year, and I made some calls out to employees. I believe it was our McKinney-Vento, was a late addition. I had all
Oh, yeah.
mine done and all of a sudden it said, you've got a training to complete, and I, thought I had already finished it. So I let folks know. Yeah, they do a good job of trying to keep up with us, so we aren't having to do so many and. There's a lot.
I think that was the only thing that I had.
Yeah. So I don't know if you heard me say, Mindy, next Wednesday's board meeting is first reading. And then March will be approval. And we got notice that there'll be one right behind it with updates. So I anticipate in March or early April, we'll be back. Yeah. Any questions between now and then? We can answer them at next week's meeting. Just let me know ahead of time so I can make sure that I have answers. And if there are no other questions, then we will dismiss.
Need a motion to adjourn?
We need a motion to adjourn.
I motion to adjourn.
Second.
Thank you. It was good meeting for me.
Yeah. Thank you very much, everybody, for coming.
You said you were coming.